Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to many of you who are joining us from various continents. And thanks for my amazing supporters here. I'm really happy that you could make it. And in fact, a lot of work was also possible because of many people in the audience here today. So I apologize in advance if I'm embarrassing anyone. All right. So this is my second version of the talk. It is how I train life scientists to build inclusive communities. First of all, I would like to thank Sonika Tyagi and Jason for making this possible and for the kind invitation to life science trainers. I think this is a really cool series. If you do anything remotely related to life science training and people have benefited from what you've done, I would totally encourage you to give a talk at this platform. It's really nice. All right, so let's get started. Let me begin by introducing myself a bit and my path to why I'm giving such a talk at all. So it all started with my interest in math biology originally during my PhD, and then starting with my postdoc, I moved to computational biology. And that got me to start working on R, and R is all about inclusive communities, as we have heard during the initial introductions. So research-wise, in our group at Michigan State University, we built computational approaches to study the molecular basis of pathogenesis and the intervention of infectious diseases. We build software packages, web applications for both computational and experimental biologists. But today, I'm not going to talk to you about any of that. I'm equally passionate about our education, outreach, and community building. And that's going to be the focus of today's talk. And towards my passion and my efforts, I've founded and co-founded 3 organizations: Our Ladies East Lansing, Women Plus Data Science, and more recently, AfricaR. Along with Rocio and Andrea and several others, I've also been really fortunate to work with the User 2021 program committee. You can reach out to me later on if you have any questions pertaining to any of these organizations or you would like to engage with any of our communities. Well, back in the pre-pandemic days, we actually did have a lot of fun in person. And in fact, you might even see Monique there. So we used to have several in-person events, meetups. We, over the past 3 years, we have more than 800 members, many of whom are regulars. When it was in person, we had folks from several MSU colleges, but now with the unfortunate pandemic, we have actually had to go remote. But that was kind of a blessing in disguise because now we've been able to reach out to several others who would not have been able to attend our meetup otherwise from Michigan or rest of the world. And I've been lucky and extremely glad to be part of these wonderful communities here that have been instrumental in shaping who I am. I've already mentioned the organizations I've worked very closely with, and all of this would not have been possible without the huge support system underlying the Our Ladies global team. I've also worked closely with Stephanie Butlin from our OpenSci, the ISMB EvolComgen, and the new PI Slack, all of whom have supported me during these endeavors. One of my fundamental goals as a scientist, educator, and mentor is to level the playing field in the quantitative sciences, increase the participation of historically excluded and underrepresented groups, and enrich the diversity of leaders in these disciplines. And being a woman and a person of color, this has further heightened my recognition of this goal and the hurdles on the way to achieving this. I've worked towards this goal over the past few years by founding these organizations, working on international conference committees, and serving as an active member of several other data science communities. So a quick show of hands, even if your videos are off, I'm guessing most of you have heard of Our Ladies. Is there anyone who hasn't? Okay. In that case, I can very quickly go over this just for the sake of the recording. So Our Ladies Global is an international organization. It's a worldwide organization that promotes gender diversity in the R stats community. And it does such a fabulous and beautiful job of it. And it does this through meetups and mentorships. And most importantly, it aims at providing a friendly and safe environment for one and all. To this date, we have more than 200 chapters spanning 60 countries across the world. We recently crossed the 100,000 mark, which is, I think, amazing. And this kind of goes to show how strong the R community is. If any of you are not already engaged with it, I would very strongly recommend that you try to find a chapter that's closest to you. You can just go to rladies.org and the interactive map by Ben Uba will pull up. And my personal journey started with a search of a local chapter. When I basically came upon Our Ladies through Twitter, like most other people have. And I thought, you know what, this seems like such a fun and engaging community. Why don't I join it? But it turned out there was nothing for a 3 or 4 hour radius. And there was no chapter in Michigan. And that is when, along with my co-organizer, Camille, who's since moved on to the Caribbean, we basically co-founded and we started the organization, Our Ladies East Lansing, the first one in Michigan. Since then, we have more than 800 members. And now I'm co-hosting and co-organizing all the events with Kayla Johnson and Stephanie Hickey. And here, in addition to the core mission of Our Ladies, what we also aim to do, in addition to exchanging knowledge and skills, is to develop new generation of educators and leaders. We want to make sure that we provide the platform and train folks to be able to do this. Okay, let me admit Sonika. Okay. So here are a few quick snapshots of our several events. This is from our Women in Data Science Symposium and several hands-on workshops that we hosted. And this is in fact with Our Ladies Chennai, which is a chapter in India. And this is from our very first meetup back in 2018. When it was still local, we were really surprised to see that we were able to attract people from several different fields. These are at least 15 or 20 different colleges from Michigan State. And we had students, faculty, postdocs from each of these units. And at the time when we started, we weren't even expecting this, right? We didn't even know that there was this need for such an R community locally. We've hosted several kinds of meetups, a national symposium, and we also have seen that there are people who participate from several age groups and expertise levels. And with the COVID, we were actually able to go global. And the most important thing is we've had several women and members of the LGBTQIA plus community to also host and present these events. And we were very glad we were able to make that happen. And we've also been very lucky in getting funding support for all of our meetups. So the next immediate question was, all of the folks from our local communities were like, what about Python users? What do we do? Which is when we thought, okay, let's grow our community. We spoke to University of Michigan, which is about an hour away from where we are. We decided to start the Women plus Data Science, the much larger community. There is WIDS that most of you might have heard of, but we wanted to expand it beyond just women. And that's why we kind of started this organization. Once again, I did this with Camille and several others from MSU and University of Michigan. And here we hosted several other formats, panel discussions, keynotes, lightning talks, career panels, data science journeys. And we had several invited speakers from academia, industry, and the government across levels to lead these discussions. And the most important thing that I wanted to share with this platform is not just what we did, but what we got out of it. What did we learn by founding these organizations and working with the members? The first thing that kind of came as a surprise is that most folks across all levels, regardless of where they were with respect to our programming or their field, love a good community to engage with. Who would have thought, right? So, I mean, you would think that this is the most natural thing, that people want to engage with communities of like-mindedness, but somehow this just didn't exist. And the more important thing is, we realized that making the communities inclusive and respectful made them that much more successful. There were many people who kept coming back to these events again and again because they knew that this was a safe space where they could engage. And what do I mean by inclusive? Just simple things. Just sending out quick polls to figure out what times work for them rather than just picking what times are most convenient for me. Because evenings work great for me because it's after work. But then we realize that those who are caregivers find it very hard to come. So then we realized, okay, maybe we will allow babies in arms, children, pets, whatever they need to be able to attend these events. And if they are students who have to pick between going to a cafeteria to get their timely meal versus attending an event, we're like, okay, let's serve pizza and soda or coffee so that we can allow them to also take part in the event. We also make sure that they're as accessible as possible, and we try to enforce the COC as strictly as we can. And most importantly, I would like to emphasize again that having these operate as safe spaces was extremely important to encourage and make sure that not just those of us who anyway show up at meetings, but the underrepresented communities also get to partake in an active manner in the data science community. And they also step up and are willing to lead these discussions. And one more thing that we learned was that not one format worked for everyone. So we tried several different formats that people wanted to engage in. A few of them were there to just learn. So they really enjoyed the workshops. Others, they were not ready yet to give a full 45-minute or a 1-hour talk. So we made sure that we had lightning talks so they could just come and talk about that one package that they really liked. Maybe the arcade package where they could make quick games, or some other really cool data visualization package that they want to discuss, or even how they anticipate using R in their research, whatever it is that they want to talk about, just to bring them to the discussion. We also had several co-coding and help sessions for those who are just getting started. We had coding challenges and data visualization challenges like the Tidy Tuesday ones. This is for the more advanced users who wanted to engage with the community. We had several panel discussions, data science journeys, and also day-long symposia. We also found that simple social networking events like an ice cream social or a coffee social and co-working events had a lot of traction, and people really enjoyed because this drastically lowered the barrier. There was not any one person standing in front of them and giving a talk. It was just everyone sitting around and just doing their own work with timers and coffee and donuts. So it worked really well. So it seemed like just switching around the formats also helped engage with the community as much as possible. And of course, those of us who are internationals are constantly thinking about how can I give back? What can I do for my home community? It's great that I'm able to help folks around here and engage with them. And for me, that was what can I do for the Indian R community? So Aditi and I got talking, we were looking at the statistics, and despite having so many chapters, given that Asia is one of the most populated continents and India being close to the top, there were very few active chapters of Our Ladies that were there in Asia. And this actually, okay, I should have added the legend thinking of it now. But anyway, what this says is only the ones with the check marks are the chapters that are active. Most of them have not even begun and others have become inactive. So actually, even of the ones that I showed you, most of them are not active. And that is really shocking. And if you take a chapter, for instance, from my home city, which is one of the major metropolitan cities with more than 7 million people, it turns out that not even 10 or 15 people show up to the meetup, right? So there were some systematic issues, and I was very eager to understand what these were and how to help build these communities that seem to be working very successfully in the rest of the world. And this is kind of a similar story that we saw, not just with Our Ladies, but kind of systematically also with other kinds of R user groups. And again, when compared to the other continents, it seemed like there were barely any that were operating actively in the Asian countries. And this is in fact something that Andrea had put together from the survey after the user 2021 conference. And we had a surprisingly low turnout of Asia. I mean, this was great, but we still would like to see what we can do to make sure there is high-level international participation. They do fantastic work. There are articles in all these great journals, but somehow when it comes to being present and visible at these international platforms, we somehow seem to be still falling behind. And we wanted to understand what these problems are and see if there is any small part of it that we can address. So in short, there is a need for more R communities, and there is also a need to integrate these communities in Asia. So Aditi, Upadhyaya, and I basically got together. We hosted an incubator at the User 2021 conference, and it got a surprisingly great reception. We expected only two of us and probably a few folks from User to show up at that meeting. But it turns out there were several who were interested in doing this, and they were also thinking about this all along. So we had people from India, Japan, South Korea, Nepal, and several other countries. And they wanted to bring their country to the table. They wanted to talk to us about what their challenges, unique challenges were, and how we can work together in addressing and building this AsiaR community together. And it was such a great thing that they were willing to start that conversation with us. So a few of the goals going forward are basically how to connect Asian users to one another. As with the South American or the Latin American communities, and as with several other European and African countries, it turns out that language is one of the problems in several Asian countries too, because most of the instruction that happens is not necessarily in English. So we also have to address that problem. And most importantly, we had to learn and figure out how to create these sustainable R communities that go well beyond just the one or two who are initiating it. We want to make sure that these go on for several years to come. We also had to learn how to work with local organizations, because this is extremely important. And that's the only way to make sure we understand what the challenges are and who are the underrepresented communities, and how can we make sure that they can participate equally well at all of these events. And hopefully we can build the community strong enough, we can get it going, and maybe in 2-3 years, we can host the first AsiaR conference. And towards that, our first meetup is actually going to be this weekend, and we are really, really excited. We are going to have three fantastic folks, Heather Turner and Janina Bellini and Iman, who are from ArabR, LatinR, and from R Forwards, R Foundation, and all of those who have worked with User, who are going to bring their experience building several of these communities around the world, so that we who are just a brand new AsiaR chapter learn how to build these sustainable and inclusive communities. So these are a few topics that we are discussing going forward. So if any of you are interested and would like to talk more, please reach out to either Aditi or me. So the other thing to understand is, when we are trying to start a community like this, not all of them might want to participate the same way. Not all of them might want to co-organize an event. A few people might just want to stay behind the scenes. They might be social butterflies who are quietly tweeting away, or they might be wonderful at creating and maintaining websites. They might want to bring in the right kind of speakers. Or if there is a help channel, our help channel in the Slack, they might be the ones who are posting all the code snippets and solutions. So there are different ways to actually engage with the community. So we want to make sure that we also give these opportunities to everyone, so they can engage with the community any way they deem useful, any way that they want to give and they want to learn from the community. And finally, I would like to get to one of the most fantastic experiences that I had in a very short period of time, learning all about accessibility and diversity through my interaction with fantastic folks at the User 2021 conference organization. So I was actually part of a teeny tiny wing here, which was part of the program and content committee. And somehow magically, I got the opportunity at the last minute to become the program committee chair. It was wonderful working with Janina, Rocio, Dorothea, and Heather, and others from the diversity and accessibility team like Andrea and Liz. So this is the much larger team. So, and we had to have such a diverse team to make sure that the conference was as diverse as the team itself. We made sure that we had representation from every single underrepresented and majority communities to make sure that we cater to all of the needs. And this time the conference went truly global. There was a huge jump from 47 to 135 countries that participated. There was a huge increase in registration. For the first time at User, there were tutorials and talks that happened in languages other than English. We made sure that we provided captions and screen reader friendly platforms. And most importantly, we had such a diverse organizing team that made sure that we had a very diverse participant pool as well, with folks from most of the underrepresented communities. And very recently, we abstracted a few of these lessons into an article, and that is 10 simple rules to host an inclusive conference. Hopefully we'll make it work, and it's going to be on one of the preprint servers soon enough. A lot of people are already asking us. And Rocio and Andrea put together the fantastic job of gathering everyone's thoughts, everyone's rules, and compiling these into 10 simple rules. In short, this is what they are. We basically kind of divided these into 3 sets of rules: foundation, design, and continuity. The main foundation rules are, even before you conceive a conference, or even if it is a regional event, the main thing is to set your vision, decide to provide a safe environment, and make sure that you have a diverse organizing team that can ensure that all of this happens. And as far as the design of the conference itself happens, the first thing is to identify, and only when you identify can you counter systematic bias in the system, whether it's in the local communities or in the conference at large. And now, especially with COVID, it has us all thinking, maybe virtual or hybrid is the way to go, because this made sure that so many other communities that were not able to participate in these events are able to do it now. It lowered the barriers and made sure that several folks, either due to financial reasons or not being able to travel due to visa reasons, are all able to attend now. It basically levels the playing field the way we want it to be. And the most important thing is to make sure that other languages are included when there are many non-native speakers at hand. Build accessibility into the fabric of the conference itself. And everything about the communication, whether it's a tweet, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's the report that comes at the end of the conference, or the initial announcement or the agenda, every single thing should have the inclusive language and make sure that we communicate what is the vision of the conference or the event. What is the goal? How do we want to make sure that it is as inclusive as possible for everyone to attend and participate? And it's also possible to not just get generic finance, but probably also request specific funding for events like this. Maybe if you just try to get funding for, I want to host an inclusive conference, someone might raise their eyebrows. So maybe you want to ask them specific questions. Could you help us with just the captioning service? Or maybe you could give us a small pot of money to make sure we have a screen reader friendly platform instead of Slack or something else, right? So there are several ways in which we can make this happen. Maybe all of them would not be possible, but any steps that we can take in each of these directions is going to be extremely important. And most importantly, for instance, we learned tons of things from this conference, and I'm sure many people do during the course of hosting any event. But the important thing is to document all of this systematically so that the new team in charge would not have to reinvent the wheel. They can learn from the principles, they can learn from your successes and failures, and make sure that they have a even more successful conference than the one that you just hosted. So these are the 10 simple rules in words. I probably should have held this up when I was going over them. But anyway, I'm going to have this available soon. With that, I would like to close. I would like to give some time for questions and lots of discussion. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm very happy to keep the discussion going. Thanks again for this wonderful opportunity.